This looks so nice. So I did a slip knot, working yarn is coming from behind here, and I mean the tail is coming from behind, the working yarn is coming in front. And we're just going to take our loom hook, stick it into the loop, and scoop up a loop through the working yarn, just like that. Actually, I'm going to show you my yarn. So this is called Spiced Apple, and it's just a Karen chunky cake. It's the tea cake line, so Karen tea cakes right here. And I thought it was spiced apple. Let's take a look. Yep, it's spiced cider. Okay, there you go. Oh, beautiful colors, and it looks really nice in the stitch. But I also did the stitch with Charisma, and it worked really nice there too, so I also know that that one works. Anyway, here's our loop, back to our chain, and we just go behind the peg, take the working yarn, and just pull it through and tighten it up. Through and tighten it up. Back behind, there's your loop, working yarn through, pull, and just tighten it up. And I always like to check to make sure my tension that I'm using is going to be perfect. And this looks good. It looks like I'd be able to pull it over, and yet it's tight. So I'm happy with that, so I'm going to keep going. Just like that. There's your loop behind the peg and just pulling the working yarn through. It's a very easy cast on, and you can see it's producing this nice chain kind of effect. You can see it on the other side too. And so it's just going to make a really nice brim, especially if we use the right stitches with it. Okay, so we're just going to keep going around, and then I will meet you up back at the starter peg. Well, just before the starter peg, I'll show you how to end this cast on. Okay, here we've made it to the end here, and we just go behind the last peg, tighten it up, and then we just take the loop and just lay it over, and we can just cinch it up there. And then I'm just going to take my loom hook, knit it over, and that will secure it, and we are cast it on. And then I guess it would be nice if I actually showed you the loom that I'm doing this on. So it's a 36 peg Cindywood loom, 3/4 inch gauge. This knits up, about average size, so you'd use your normal size that you like for a hat loom. Okay, now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to do a row of purl. There we go. Lost my loom hook for a minute. So we're just going to put our yarn hook into the yarn just like the way we did when we cast it on. And we're going to pull up a loop, and then we're going to take this all off the top and just slip the loop over, and that's your purl. And there's lots of videos on purl. I'm not going to go into it too much, but we're just going to do a row of purl. So I'm just scooping it up, and I'll do one close up here. Scooping up the yarn, bringing it up so you can see the loop here, and just laying it over the top and tightening it. Over the top and tightening it. So we're just going to do a row of purl, and I'll meet you back here. Okay, so I finished the row here, and now we just do a row of U-wrap. So just like this. Okay, so I'll meet you back here, and we'll start doing the brim of the hat. Okay, and that completes our cast on sequence. And now we're just going to go into the brim, and the stitch we're going to use is called Linky Squares. It's the second stitch I ever created, so I've been using it for a long time, and I really like this stitch. So we're at peg 1. I'm going to move this closer. Can't keep it here for too long, it gets awkward, but here we go. Whatever peg we're on, we're going to call peg 1, and then we're going to go behind peg 2, behind peg 3, and just wrap it in front. And we don't want it too tight. We don't want the stitch to get too tight, so keep it loose. It'll look fine if it's tight too. You're just going to have a harder time knitting it over. Now, we're always going to, in this version, I have a few different ways of doing this, but in this version, we want it to be a tighter stitch going around for our brim. So what we're going to do is we're going to wrap over the number 2 peg first, and then we're going to wrap over number 3 peg. So here we are at number 1, behind 2, behind 3, wrap it in front, knit over 2 peg, and then knit over 3 peg. And so we're at 1, we're going over 3 and 2. Now if we did it the other way, we're not going to have it as tight. This will make it tighter. This is the tightest you can make the stitch, is wrapping it this way. Okay, and so we're at peg 1, behind 2 and 3, keeping it loose because we don't want the stitch to tighten up on you. It has a tendency to get tighter, so important that you, if it does start to get tight, you can loosen it up, because if you just start wrapping looser again within a row, it will loosen up for you. Okay. And I'll do one more. We're at peg 1, wherever the yarn is. We're going behind 2 and 3, in front of 2 and 3, knitting over 2 first, then knitting over 3. So each peg is getting 2 stitches on it. So knitting 1 row is like knitting 2. So this stitch goes really, really fast. Gotta like that, right? And just keep going. Okay, and I'll do it once more. We're on peg 1, behind 2 and 3, over 2 and 3, knit them off. The working yarn is now at what was our 2 peg, but it becomes our 1 peg. So 1, behind 2 and 3, over 2 and 3, and knit over. Okay, so now all you're going to do is keep going around and around and around till you get the length of brim you want. I tend to like brims that are between 1.5 and 2 inches, so I just measure, and when the brim gets about that long, I'm done. But for this hat, you can have as any kind of brim you want. You can have a very short brim, you can have a longer brim, whatever you like will be just fine.